Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Whiteboard. My name is Harshit, and I'm the Director of Business Analysis at Bright Labs. We are a digital agency specializing in SaaS and e-commerce SEO. And I have Frank Sondors with me today. He's the co-founder and CEO at Salesforge, which is an all-in-one sales execution super app used as AI co-pilot that helps sales team achieve the highest probability of hitting the target. And the another tool that he has is MailForge. Now that helps set up your cold email infrastructure real quick. A big welcome to you, Frank. So happy to have you with me today.
Thanks, Harshit. Good to be here. Yeah, just to dumb it down, you typically need four main things in cold email. One is infrastructure, so that's what MailForge does. We have another product launching next week called InfraForge.ai. And you need a tool to send emails with good deliverability in mind. And you need to do a bunch of different things, whether that's email warm-up, validating emails, etc. So that's what Salesforge does, that's what we call the mothership product. And you also need to take care of the copy, making sure you don't send templates to your prospects because templates do damage deliverability. So there's a few things we do there within Salesforce to solve that. And then the only other thing that we don't do, but also super important, is the targeting, right? Which people you go after. So the lead list essentially that you need to generate. So while we don't do that, we typically recommend where to get your lead lists and how to assemble them, potentially many other things. So yeah, that's what we do in a nutshell right now as of this minute. But yeah, we're looking to do a ton more as we progress into the next year and the next couple of quarters actually in particular. But also in the next year, we're looking to expand beyond email, offer also voice capabilities and also the ability to also engage with prospects via LinkedIn.
Well, that's great. Now, Frank, I would love to know. Let's start with your journey first. From working as a brand manager at times to becoming the co-founder and CEO of these fantastic initiatives. Please tell us about it.
Yeah, so I've been in many different jobs and gigs, etc. But over probably a decade or so, I spent in sales across different tech companies. Yeah, I started my career at Google and then transitioned over to working for a bunch of SaaS companies out there in different various roles, but always go to market, always, I guess, selling something. And then in my last gig, I led a sales team of about 50. And that's where I had this epiphany moment around the fact that most companies, they typically hire a lot of people in sales, and because that's the main lever to essentially target attainment. And I thought that was the wrong way to look at things. And I always wished there was a software that would be able to scale. So essentially helping me or my business essentially that I used to represent, not to hire that many people. And essentially achieve also target with the target that we had for the year with big data essentially. So yeah. So my journey just spanned mainly across various different sort of teams, but yeah, predominantly sales really. That's where I see myself as the most fit in terms of my skill set and just always being hungry to succeed and develop and kind of progress. So typically I move very fast, I execute fast. And then this is where typically this sort of type of a human, let's call it that way, bodes more well to be in sales. So that's why I ended up in sales. And yeah, now I'm just, instead of selling something or leading a sales team, now I'm just selling a sales software, right? And essentially solving my own problems that I had back in the days as a sales leader. Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, now let's talk about the main attraction, Salesforge. Would love to know how exactly it is revolutionizing the sales execution.
I think the whole just space just generally is being disrupted, meaning the sales execution, how you execute sales, how you engage with prospects, etc. And there's a lot of just general disruption in space. We're just part of the disruption. And so one of the things that we are big believers in is what we call the death of templates. The death of templates, meaning we don't believe that as we're progressing right now into the future, many companies will be sending templates to their prospects. They'll be actually sending a lot more what we call unique communication to every single individual. So that means that particular email is uniquely crafted for that person. Now, it's not being crafted by a human, but it's crafted by just big data. And that's the world that we're moving into, because majority of the emails in the world, pretty much like I think 97, 98% or so are always templated. So meaning when you get a bunch of emails out there, they're always templated. And we were going to be shifting from that static communication over to what we call programmatic communication. So where essentially content will be programmatic and computes it and will be delivered to the individual. And we're just part of that sort of, let's call it shifts and transition. And we're naturally optimizing our whole kind of engine towards businesses that need to engage with every single prospect at any scale. And the problem with scale naturally is that there's a lot of businesses out there that have a huge total addressable market that they could go after. And this is where you typically have this sort of challenge. How do you engage with my total addressable market? And it could be like 100,000 businesses, right? And yeah, so this is how we, tackling the problem. And the software can be, operated by a single, literally human, where you don't necessarily have to hire 10 reps, where essentially the software is able to scale up the output of a single sales rep to the level of 10 sales reps. So currently doing that across email, but also then, as I mentioned, we're going to be expanding to the other channels and doing something very similar in those channels as well.
Being in the sales field, you understand how important is multiple touch points and a cross function, basically like cross channel promotions altogether. So
Mm.
it makes sense. I would love to understand like what feed do these sales representative have to give to the AI so that the customization that happens for individual prospect is just up to the mark.
So when it comes to personalization and up to the mark, question here, the best sort of email communication is where you essentially look at typically two data sets that you really need to craft a great email. One is what the seller data. So what is it? Why is the seller reaching out to another business? What is the problem the seller is solving? What's the solution? What's the cost of inaction? So the cost of doing nothing about a pain or a problem. And combining that together with what is it that we know about the recipient, or what we typically say the buyer, or the buyer data. What is the buyer data? So what typically a sales rep does, it goes on the website, goes on the LinkedIn profile, I'll use that information to craft and a great email. And instead of doing that manually, we just do that programmatically. We programmatically access the website of your prospect, programmatically access the LinkedIn profile, and we'll be accessing a bunch more other data sets. And we'll be stitching that together with the seller data. What is it being sold? And by having these two data sets, we are able then to do computations, add a few levers there to then compute a unique email to your recipient in any language of your choice, or typically the language of the recipient. So I don't know, let's say we have a running an email campaign for the whole Europe, but right now we're targeting a person in France. And naturally, people in France typically speak French. So instead of sending an email in French, the system can programmatically send an email in French rather than in English. And that's something that we're doing today. And that's how we believe, why we're also big believers in not just personalized communication, but also delivering that in the right language of the recipient. Because we also see a significant lift in reply rates if you're localizing also content of the recipient.
Now, I would love to understand, Frank, like how has the AI personalization basically evolved with the recent update from the Gmail and other major email providers, and what impact does this have on the sales strategies altogether?
There's a bunch of different sort of updates by Gmail and Outlook, and there'll be more updates coming in the future as well. So essentially, what the two main email service providers are doing is they're essentially introducing more and more restrictions over time, which is impacting really the bad guys in the ecosystem. So the ones that sending maybe ransomware, fraud, and stuff like that. So, but it's also impacting the good guys as well in the space. Essentially, businesses trying to reach out to other businesses, and so there's many different restrictions. But when it comes specifically to content, when you're sending exactly the same template to a lot of people, and then these individuals report you for spam, and they're doing so frequently, then essentially Gmail learns from that. Essentially, there's a learning mechanism behind the scenes. So essentially, if the same copy is being reported very frequently for spam, then you are landing more so in the spam folder. And essentially, this is also the reasoning why you need to either leverage more of the AI to essentially send fresh content to your prospect, or unique rather, to every individual. And then the alternative to that is leveraging what's called spin tags, essentially where you're randomizing the content within the email. So you're saying, for example, the same thing, but using different words. For example, hey, hi, hello, for example, is an example. And yeah, so that's something that you would want to do.
Tell me, when you say that not to use template and do much more personalization, which I completely agree with, what should be the minimum percentage that you should be personalizing basically for each one of your prospects? What's the minimum original content I would say that you should be using?
So arguably it's about 50%.
Okay.
So it's quite a lot. And yeah, so this is where AI comes in handy to do that. But also if you're unable to use AI for whatever reason, there are some reasons where AI maybe can't be used, or maybe it's too expensive, etc., then you need to essentially at least randomize the content. So spin the content for at least 50%. So at least do that.
Gotcha.
But it only applies for the first email, because first email is being judged whether your whole sort of thread lands in the primary or in the spam box. So yeah.
Let's talk about some of the core, because you're in a very competitive space. I would love to understand what are the core USPs of Salesforge which sets it apart from other competitors in the market?
Yeah, so the market is huge, first of all, and yes, there's a lot of players in the market. Everybody's carving up their own niche, and this is exactly what we do. We also have our own niche, and weirdly enough, we actually, from what we know, we're the fastest growing company out of all of our competitors in the first 12 months. So we're doing pretty well, even though there's a ton of competitors, really, and we've been only in business for 12 months, literally. And so even though, so this is what, if any founders are listening out there, even though there is a lot of competition, you can always find your wedge in the market and kind of you can enter it and have a kind of good product, good distribution, and you can enter it. And you just need to have arguably a killer feature, at least one or two maybe, to go into market and build out your base, right, of thousands of customers, just like we have right now. And for us, this is where we look at multiple products. So, for example, we already have two. So we have Salesforge that sends great emails. So these great emails that's already something unique about us because none of our competitors are actually able to do exactly what we do on the content front. And then our competitors also don't have infrastructure, their own infrastructure, unlike we have our own. So, and when I mean by infrastructure, that's, I mean, of course, our second product and another infrastructure product, but essentially we're perceived a bit more like what we call a full stack solution, because you don't have to go to a registrar like GoDaddy, get your domain, you don't have to go to Gmail, etc. You don't have to deal with that pain and that cost, and also how slow things are to just certainly set up. So I would say ease of use is like a big thing that we're optimizing also towards. So like I mentioned, the only thing that we're missing is like data in the software in Salesforge, and that's something also we're going to look into to solve. And then once we solve data, then we do everything for the companies when it comes to email. So yeah, I would say ease of use, able to generate great content for every single individual. And then something that's super underrated is the customer support team, which we've been told when our users compare different softwares, is our customer support is the best in the market. And that's something typically that's underrated because, especially in our space, there's a lot of people that go into support that have a lot of questions, and being able to respond within 2 minutes is like super important because it does feel like it's part of your team, it's like an extended team that's able to help you out with your campaigns, etc. So I don't know, even when we had a customer yesterday asking me on LinkedIn, hey, Frank, could you help me out with reviewing the copy? And I said, sure. So you book a time with the individual, review the copy, try and help out, right? And most softwares will never do that. They will never jump on a call with the user when the user asks you to jump on the call. So just to give you an idea there.
All right. Now, because precision marketing and precision sales are some of the key components of Salesforce offering, how do you ensure the accuracy and effectiveness in these specific areas?
Precision comes by being able to specifically take the right content, let's say from the website, or take the right content from the LinkedIn profile of that individual and marry it with what is it that you sell. So that's a lot of that we do behind the scenes. It's about, but then also the other aspect of precision is the data really that you need to upload and need to be able to essentially engage with the right people. So on the data front, naturally, because we don't do that yet, we're not able to, let's say, suggest to our customers which are the best leads to go after. But that's also something that we're looking actually to do in the future, like really suggest and recommend the right people to go after for their particular product they're selling.
Right. Now, this is something that many companies suffer now. Could you share some effective tips or best practices, for crafting cold outreach emails that basically resonate with the recipients?
I would just say use AI to do it, but this is why AI exists. But yeah, if you're looking to craft a template with a spin tags, something a bit more what I call rules-based approach, because leveraging AI is what's called machine learning or AI-based approach, as in each content programmatically changes and you don't have to be involved. But yeah, if the human is involved, which is what's called rules-based execution, so the human is in charge and sets the rules how the copy should be, etc. Then typically I would say when you are reaching out to an individual, try and double down on the pain that you're solving. So just talk about the pain and sell the pain, don't sell the solution in the first email. And essentially we have an open-ended question at the end of that email. Hey, is this a priority for you guys to solve this month for this quarter? So just ask that instead of, would you like to buy my product? That's very different, right? So, and just generally the goal of cold email is to start a conversation rather than pushing down and meeting down the throat of your prospect. So here I would say pain, first email, second email, if the recipient does not reply, which happens most of the time, then you can sell your solution. So let's say in the first email, I would say, hey, I was wondering whether you have any deliverability issues and when you're struggling right now. And is this a priority for you to solve next quarter, right? So the next quarter is approaching on Monday, right? And then Harshit does not reply. In the second email, Harshit, listen, the way that we could solve your deliverability problem will be by merging essentially these two software, Salesforge and MailForge, and by solving these four kind of critical pillars in the deliverability, or three pillars, whatever. And this is something that we've been able to achieve across thousands of clients that we have right now, and particularly, let's say, these clients that would be, let's say, similar to you. So let's say these are typically your competitors, for example, right? So this is essentially proof points that the solution works. Thousands of people are using it. Here are some logos, and this is what we're able to achieve. So I always say don't over exaggerate. For example, if you're talking about deliverability, what over exaggerating means, like we can deliver 90% open rates, as an example, or 100% open rates. That's just unrealistic. But you can deliver some when you say 60% open rates, because if you are reaching out to a lot of people, most of the businesses out there don't even have 60% open rates these days. So the fact that you'll be able to say, hey, listen, I can consistently deliver to you 60% open rates if you're going to follow best practices by using these softwares, then a lot of people may respond just based on that. Essentially, you're selling the end outcome for the customer. So it's less about the product, but what's the end outcome? So what is that you're going to get by using these softwares, right? So you're going to get better deliverability. And then the third email, typically what I like doing is, I am potentially barking up the wrong tree. Is there another person that I should be speaking to? Because sometimes okay, this is the list that I'm going after, but actually it's the wrong person that you're speaking to, trying to pitch the problem and the solution. There may be somebody else in the organization that's better fit for having a conversation about this, right? And you just need to mention that in the third email. So instead of having a breakup email as the third email, just mention that. And you can leave a video also in the second email or the third email, just for people to visualize the experience that they would have in the software. And even though maybe it's not relevant right now for that particular company, it may be relevant at a future point, right? So they may be able to dig out your email, let's say after a quarter, etc., when it is relevant. So this is another reason why I typically recommend having some sort of rich media assets, so like videos or images, etc., just for people to visualize, essentially, because some people essentially digest information better when it's more visual, right? And because most of the emails is just pure text, essentially, by switching the type of essentially content that you're delivering from text to videos or images, actually can drive significantly higher lift in response rate. So it's something that I would recommend doing. So what I also mentioned is like 3 emails. So I always say stick to 3 emails, don't send more than 3 emails, because the probability of response out of the third email is just too low to justify sending more emails. And the probability of receiving a spam report after the third email is like super high. So don't send more than 3 emails to your prospect. You're better off stopping and re-engaging if you're just doing email after a quarter, or reverting to using maybe other channels like LinkedIn, giving a call, whatever else is that you can do to engage with your market.
Yeah, makes sense. Right. Now, as someone deeply involved in digital strategy and execution, what trends do you see emerging in basically the realm of predictive market intelligence and demand gen?
Maybe on the predictive front, there's a lot of things happen just generally in the world of marketing, but I think one of the things that maybe if people are not yet aware on the maybe demand gen front is you can identify. So if you have customers in the US, as an example, and you have a lot of users on your website from the US, there are new technologies in the market that allow you to identify a particular individual that's on your website like right now. So there are technologies that can identify, or there were technologies that were able to identify companies that are on your website. So for example, that's using softwares like Clearbit and many others. But today, in the US only, you can see which exact person is on your website. And you can get the LinkedIn profile, etc. And there are a few technologies out there, and one of them is called RB2B, for example. RB2B essentially is contact level identification software that can just push out, let's say, for example, a Slack message saying, hey, this person is on your website. And then you can engage with that individual on LinkedIn, send them an email, video, without however you want to do that, without ever them signing up. So yeah, this is something where I'm seeing that sort of shift. It's a bit more intrusive, right? Imagine you go on the website, Harshit, on my website right now, and you're based in the US, I will know that you're my website and I can send you an email. I know you that you are on my site, right? So it's not something you can do, unfortunately, in territories like, let's say, Europe or other territories where there's legislation, essentially, or privacy legislation that protects the users. But so, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other trends, but I would say that this is the probably most recent trend that I have observed, just generally maybe on the identifying users. Then there's another major trend, specifically in B2B on the demand gen front, which is that instead of spending your money and a lot of your money, let's say with LinkedIn ads, you would actually spend a lot more of your money in the world of B2B on influencers. If you just think about it, I'm a user, I'm just scrolling through LinkedIn. Who are you more likely to buy from? What sort of asset or what sort of activity of demand gen? Are you more likely to buy from an ad, or are you more likely to buy from an influencer that you know and you trust, essentially? So it's just like in B2C. Right, so we're seeing the emergence essentially of what's happening in the world of B2C, with all the e-commerce stuff right now and stuff like that, which has been going on for a long time on Insta, etc. You are seeing a lot of that right now in the world of B2B, specifically LinkedIn, X, or Twitter, and sometimes also newsletters as well that are being run by influencers, and being able to essentially engage with your ideal customer profile through somebody who is well known in that space. Yeah, so I'm seeing the acceleration essentially of that, because this sort of topic has existed for a long time, but it has not been yet arguably accelerated yet in particular. So we're also seeing platforms also popping up in this particular space, so-called influencer or passion fruit, for example. So this is where you can source your influencers for your specific area, brand, etc. Yeah, highly recommend it now.
And what sort of integrations do you offer? Because typically, if you talk about, say, sales representative, he might be using some tool for the list, right?
Yeah.
Then your tool for the outreach, and
Yeah.
maybe there will be another tool basically just to track down a sales funnel, right? A CRM maybe. Is there like any sort of integration that you follow so that the flow itself is smoother?
Good question. Typically, our customers get the data somewhere, and it could be a bunch of different places that you could get your data from. And they typically actually get it, and they have a CSV. So they upload that CSV into Salesforge. And yes, they are executing against those leads, and then they would push out the outcome of that lead, let's say, into a CRM, like HubSpot, Salesforce, etc. So we don't yet have native integrations with CRMs as an example, but we do have webhooks and we do have Zapier that can be used and that you can use to push out the data. So it can be done already today. And we are looking, though, to build native integrations with CRMs later this year. So it's going to come, but we're just not there yet because we only been in business for a year. And typically when you're like such a, let's call it young business, even though a year feels like to me like 10 years, you focus on the core experience of the product has to work, right? So if you're solving deliverability, you have to be solving deliverability through a bunch of different features. Because if you're not solving the problem, then what's the point of integrating with any other softwares, right? But yeah, we're definitely looking to accelerate that and many other things. Just also an example, we have currently 2 products in the market. And in the next 2 weeks, we're going to have 2 more products actually in the market that we're rolling out. For this year, we're going to focus on these 4 products and expanding the customer base across all 4 of them.
And plus, like you're anyway solving the objective through Zapier or and webhooks. So yeah, solves the purpose, man. Can you share some of the examples of unconventional tactics that you have used to outsmart competition in the realm of basically sales and marketing? Well,
Yes, it depends. So it depends on who's listening in and for whom something is unconventional and for whom something that's just normal thing. But the majority of people are not very savvy in terms of how do you compete against your particular competitors. Here's a few examples. So one example is, let's say you are just like us in a very competitive space. You have 100 competitors, maybe you have 20 competitors, etc. But you know that your product is X times better, let's say, than that competitor's product, right? And you wish you would know who are the customers of that particular competitor. So what could you do to figure out those customers? So one thing is you can go to like a G2 marketplace where people leave the reviews of a particular software, and you can engage with those prospects and you can try and sell them your solution. Say, hey, I know that you're probably using this solution. This is our solution, and this is why we're better, and I would love to offer you a discount, whatever that is, right? Essentially, you scrape G2 reviews, you engage with the prospects, and you go after them. That's option 1. Option 2 is where else could they be the customers of your product? Guess what? A lot of the customers of that particular brand, they follow them on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Guess what? You can scrape followers of your competitor LinkedIn profiles. So the company pages essentially. So there are services out there that do that. But essentially, let's say if my competitor has 10,000 followers on LinkedIn right now for their LinkedIn page, I'll just go and scrape all those 10,000 LinkedIn URLs. Then I would enrich that data with email, with calls. I would do cold calling, etc. And I will speak to all those people. So it's not just that, but it's also you can do it with complementary solutions. So for example, we don't offer data, so we just would scrape, let's say, followers of our complement data vendors essentially out there. So these are a couple examples that are rather unconventional still these days. So I don't see a lot of people actually doing that. What is probably more conventional is that you're just bidding on your competitive keywords, so brand terms essentially on Google. So that's more conventional stuff. But and what else do I see people doing? Yeah, this is more unconventional, but with a couple of tactics. But there's a lot more that can be done. It just really depends on the industry that you're in and what sort of access to the data that you have out there, let's say on the web. Because there are some industries where the customers are never on LinkedIn, they never follow that business ever, but they have like hundreds of thousands of customers.
Right.
But just not on LinkedIn, for example, or on Twitter, whatever.
Yeah.
So
All right. Now we're coming to an end, Frank, and I would love to have a quick rapid fire with you. Are you ready for that?
yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. If you could use only one social media platform for the rest of your life, which would it be and why?
LinkedIn. I started using LinkedIn over a decade ago, and it has evolved massively over time. And it just got better and better. And there's more and more value essentially that I get out of LinkedIn. Whereas other platforms like Facebook or X, etc., their value has not increased actually over time. So that's quite interesting.
X is again widely used by SaaS industry, apart from LinkedIn, of course.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just looking at where do I consistently generate more and more value every year, and that's LinkedIn. So yeah, and I also see a lot of people moving, let's say, from X to LinkedIn as an example, or moving from Facebook to LinkedIn. So you do see these trends, and people essentially congregate more so on LinkedIn.
I believe like Facebook nowadays is just, for old people who can't really like get their way out of that platform now.
Yes. Yes.
What's the most bizarre marketing tactic you have ever seen work successfully?
Bizarre marketing tactic where you pay the customer, sorry, the prospect, $100 to jump on a demo call with you.
People do that.
Yes. Yes, there are companies that will pay you $100 so that you jump with them on a demo. Yes. There are even marketplaces out there. You are a buyer, and other companies, so SaaS companies, can pay you $100 so that you jump with them on the call for $100 just to
Uh,
show the product.
Interesting.
So essentially, what you're doing, you're increasing your cost of customer acquisition, but
Yeah,
you will have access to your ideal customers. They will definitely jump on the call, and then some of them do convert.
yeah, for sure.
That's so profitable.
If they read it differently, they will convert for sure. So
Yes, but you get paid individually just by listening to some guy.
yeah,
Because
I've
time is
seen.
money.
Yeah, yeah.
So you
There
buy.
are share as a part of affiliate to get that qualified conversion, but this is something new to me. To be honest.
Yeah.
All right. What was the weirdest place you have ever come up with a brilliant idea?
The weirdest place with a brilliant idea. I don't have a weird place. It was probably at home. I typically spend only in two places all my time. It's either at home or at the office. That's it. So most of the good stuff that comes out of my brain is in those two places. Not by walking somewhere in the park. No, nothing like that. Not in the shower. No, it's boring stuff. You're just like, yes. And it happens just at home, just lying on the couch or in your bed, whatever, in the office right now and sitting. It's like, yes, we should do exactly. That's how we're going to solve this problem. That's how we're going to 10x in the next, let's say, 2 years.
Now coming to other, like what habit holds you back the most?
Sorry, repeat that again.
What habit holds you back the most?
Habit holds me back the most. So typically I'm the type of guy that if something holds me back, I get rid of it. I'm typically in what we call the execution mode. So if something that stops me from executing, I'm typically looking to get rid of it. But so what we also do with our business is where we help companies to generate pipeline with the least headcount possible. So the argument also, from what I've observed and through my years, is the reason why companies don't make more money It's actually the people that they have. So what holds you back to make more money are the people in your company. You essentially have the wrong type of people in the company, and they hold you back to execute faster because you need to spend time on the people that actually don't move the needle. And arguably, the habit, I guess, here is that would be something where you keep people that are not really good for your business, essentially, but you keep them. And that's a habit that you want to get rid of. And sometimes it's hard to figure out whether the individual is somebody that's what's called accretive. Does he actually is good for your business or bad for your business? And you're tinkering and you're in that limbo state, essentially trying to figure out whether actually this individual should be part of your business or not.
Yeah.
So that's probably a habit where you're just not maybe making decisions fast enough on humans, essentially, whether they should be there or not. So it has to do with hiring and firing people generally. And you want to give people a second chance, but you shouldn't and stuff like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Now coming to our very last question. What's your last Google search? And to be honest, because you are AI fan, what was your last prompt? Choose what you want.
New York is my last one. I'm just checking right now because I was just trying to book a meeting with somebody in New York. I was like, what's the time there right now? I don't always remember with all the time changes, etc., and talking to people all around the world. Yeah, but the most very frequent thing that I search on Google is like, what's the time right now somewhere in the world? So my most frequent search, because I typically average about anywhere between sort of 10 to 20 meetings a day. So like super swamped with a ton of meetings. Starts from 9 a.m. so pretty much midnight, Monday to Friday. Sometimes even weekends because people really want to speak about the business and etc. So yeah, that's it.
All right, Frank. Thank you so much, man. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for taking time out, for this and sharing your experiences about the tool. Really appreciate it. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Have a good rest of the day.
Let me just hit pause there.